imagine what that must have been like at the time? Everyone literally, neighborhood said, "Hey, brought down Jericho." Now, obviously, most people would not even attribute it to God, but Joshua knew, the people of Israel knew, and here you have this situation where legend is just growing. Joshua is this unbelievable great military leader. Then God says, there's another place I need you to go and take care of. It's a small town called Ai. You'll be able to wipe this out, no problem. Just literally, just run through there, ransack it, done. Joshua takes his men, leads them into battle, they lose. And they cannot understand it. They just have no clue. Joshua is literally beside himself like, this makes no sense. How did we destroy Jericho? Possibly the greatest, strongest city, and we lose to Ai. Ai is like a blip on the map. It's like, coming into Chicago, defeating Chicago, and then losing to Oak Park. Next Oak Park. What do you mean we lost? We just defeated the entire city of Chicago. So, when Joshua destroyed Jericho and took over it, there was one condition that God had placed on them. Does anyone remember what it was?
Don't take any of this stuff.
Do not take any spoils of war. Normally, what typically happened was you went, you destroyed a town or took it over, you helped yourself to the gold, clothes, food, anything. God says, not in this one. You are not allowed to touch a single thing. Well, wouldn't you know it, there was one fool who didn't listen, a guy named Achan. Achan decided while he was there, I'm going to take a robe. This is in Jericho. I'm going to take a robe. I'm going to take what? Some silver? 200 shekels of silver and a gold bar. And I'm going to hide it so no one knows about it. Did he miss somebody?
Yes. Yeah.
Who?
Yeah.
Yeah. God was completely well aware. For punishment, the punishment of that was they weren't going to defeat Ai. Now, this is a really good time for me to interject and go, when I'm always talking to you guys about sin and how sin affects us, whether you think it does or doesn't, sin affects community. It is never an individual thing. Don't confuse yourself about that. Do not think what I do in the privacy of my house with the lights off, in the dark, if I go to a different state, if I go to a different country, whatever I do, don't for a second think that your sin only affects you. Because what Achan did, why did Joshua have to suffer? Joshua had been obedient always. God told him to do something, God did, and Joshua did it. There was no questions asked. Well, in this case here, Achan thinks that he's going to sin, hide it from his community, and also hide it from God. So, Joshua loses. He can't understand it. He goes into deep prayer about this. He tears his clothes off, puts his sackcloth on, which was traditional. That's what you did when there was sin. Anyone ever wore a sackcloth? It ain't that comfortable. We're talking about a kind of like a burlappy sack. And, that against your sin, your skin, not a very pleasant feeling. Where's that? Ashes on his head, all the whole work, crying out to God, God, what happened? What happened? How did this happen? What did I do wrong? God finally reveals it to Joshua. This is what happened. What do you think they did with Achan? Yeah, they wiped them all out. Where did they do it? No? In the Valley of Acre. That's where this took place. So, the Israelites, in their mind, that's what the Valley of Acre is. It's a place of failure. It's a place of disobedience. But God said what? He's going to turn the Valley of Acre into what? So you have this situation unfolding, and God literally is going, these gifts that I've been giving you guys, and you guys keep attributing them to someone else? Isn't that what happened in the last section? The Israelites are thanking Baal for the food, the grain, the clothing, the luxuries of life. And they're going, we got this from God, but we're giving thanks to Baal for this, right? Remember that last week? Anyone here from last week? Yeah. I just want to make sure that. And he literally takes that whole idea and he's showing how he's correcting it here in this time with the Israelites. I'm going to give you, my wife, a vineyard, even though the last time you had it, you attributed it to someone else. You gave thanks to it for someone else. The food that was produced from this area that I've given you, this land, the wine that you grew, you always thank someone else. And God's going, you know what, I'm going to give it to you again. And hopefully you will remember who gave it to you, who's doing it. This concept of gifts from a loved one is what God's demonstrating. God's showing, I love you, I care about you, I want you back. And if I'm more than enough for you, but I'm still going to lavish you with things. I'm going to give you gifts. And when I do that, I'm going to take you back to this place that at some time was associated with failure. And I'm going to redeem it. I'm going to rename it, I'm going to change it, and it's going to have a completely different identity. Isn't that what we talked about last week with the names? How we switched show you no mercy to mercy. You are not my children to you are my children. And even with Jezreel, which I think was the best kind of reinvention of the name, was the name meant the same thing. It just now had different ways to apply it. At first it was, you do this evil, this terrible thing, this is what you get. You're sowing what you've done. And then God says, no, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it and go, what you've done, in spite of what you've done, I'm going to redeem it, and it's going to produce good. It's going to produce things that are wonderful, things that are amazing, things that are great. You are going to get the benefits of what I've done. So, God is literally taking this idea, this valley of Acre, the valley of Acre, and He's redeeming it, along with this idea of a door of hope. Someone turn to their Bible for me really quick to just the first person, get it and read it. John 10, 9 verses 10.
John 10 what?
9.
I am the door. If anyone enters by me, he will be saved and will go in and out and find pasture. The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I came that they may have life and have it abundantly.
You know, one of the things that I absolutely love about Scripture is that these concepts are literally used over and over. So we have this valley of Acre, place of failure, and God says, what? I'm going to make it a door of hope. Think of what a contradiction that is for the people hearing this story. This place that we've always known as failure is now going to be a doorway to hope. And then some thousands of years later, Jesus refers to himself as
The door.
as the door. The way that we receive hope. And I've told you guys this time and time again. Hope in Greek is not a thing of uncertainty. Hope is not wishful. Hope is absolute, definite certainty. There's no doubt about it. So for a lot of us, it's going to be a very difficult thing as we're coming across different passages of Scripture where we see hope. That's a guarantee. That's a promise. That's an absolute. It's not, well, I have the hope of heaven. I have the hope of salvation. Think of it if I change it instead of saying, I have the certainty of heaven. I have the absolute guarantee of salvation. Completely different. And here it is God saying, this valley of failure is now going to become your door of hope. And like I said, thousands of years later, Jesus says, who's the door of hope? He is. He's the door of hope. You want this absolute wonderful blessing, this redemption, this restoration, this reconciliation? I'm the one that you go through for it. Very simple, very clear cut. It's just an amazing, amazing thing when we think of, like I said, these concepts that get carried over thousands of years later that connect the two books together so wonderfully with Christ at the center of it. And, I think another thing is, and I talked about this in the beginning, when we have these difficult periods of times in our lives, what do we always refer to them as?
Valley.
Yeah, we always call them valleys. I'm in this, well, it's a trial that, but we always say, oh gosh, I remember in 2007, boy, that was a difficult valley in my life. I was in that place, God had me in that valley, right? No one's ever heard that? No? You've never used it because you would say something else. What would you say? Bad time.
Rough period.
I was thinking that he was going to give some eloquent, I refer to it as, no, just bad time. Well, even Scripture portrays this concept of being in the valleys, right? And what does he, but look what God does. What does he take that concept of valleys and what does he do for it? Is it still a bad place? Is it still a time of darkness and sadness? No, he changes it. God says, you know what? Valleys are going to be awesome, wonderful places. Even that, even ideas that you guys have taken and made terrible, I'm going to take that idea and I'm going to redeem it. Now a valley, when you look to it, there's going to be a door of hope at the end of it. Oftentimes, I think what I find just amazing about this is when we're going through a very difficult time, we're on that path. We're looking for Christ. We're seeking after Him. For a lot of us, we hit that low point. There's no place left for us to turn. We run out of options. I can't read enough self-help books. I can't fix things. I can't have enough friends. I can't have enough material things. I can't work hard enough. I can't have enough money. All those things we realize at some point, they don't answer this question, and I'm in this valley. And what's in the valley? A door of hope. I think that's absolutely amazing that for a lot of us, like I said, we come to know Christ when we're in that dark place in our life. And in that valley, in that dark place, is this door of hope. The door that we've been looking for the entire time. The thing that we've been looking for is right there, right when we're at our low point. And God goes, you know what, I'm taking this valley, this awful place, and I'm making it someplace wonderfully amazing. God takes valleys and makes them into something new. He improves them. He makes them better. Not what they were, not what we think they are. And for a lot of us, we end up in these valleys, and what are some of the reasons? I want to know, I want to hear from you guys. What are some of the reasons we end up in these valleys? Disobedience? No one else has been in a valley but Mari and me. All right, cool.
Self-reliance.
Self-reliance? What else?
Sin.
Sin! Yes, how can we leave out sin? Sin takes us into the valley. And then we find more sin in the valley. And we keep on consuming the sin. What else?
God's refining us.
Okay, God's refining us, absolutely.
Punishment.
Punishment? How about us? Do we put ourselves in valleys? Whether it's self-doubt, we just don't like ourselves. What's that?
Lack of faith.
A lack of faith. We end up in these valleys, and sometimes when we're in these valleys, instead of looking for that door of hope, what do?
Despair.
Despair. Something else that we do that I think sometimes we don't even realize.
Try to rely on ourselves.
When we rely on ourselves, and then you had the answer last week, Liz. What's the word? You were the only one who knew what it was. Starts with an S.
Oh, syncretism?
Syncretism. We take what we kind of know, some of the things that we're comfortable with, okay with, and we start incorporating them. We join them with a whole different belief system. We take what we know about God and go, yeah, this is okay. But now that I'm in this valley, I think I'm going to try some of these things out. I'm going to look to this thing to help get me out. And we end up keeping ourselves in this valley, sometimes, a lot of times, I should say, because of us. Because of our sin, because of our poor choices, bad decisions, all those things, still not realizing that right there is this door of hope. And I just think it's an absolutely wonderful thing that God uses this idea of, for example, in the beginning of this verse where he says, and I will give her vineyards. What did he do to the vineyards just a couple verses ago? No. What did he do with the vineyards?
Destroy them.
Yeah, he destroyed them, right? I will lay waste her vines and her fig trees. Well, he just said, I'm going to take these vines, these fig trees that you have, I'm going to ruin them, waste them, and then I'm gonna give you some vineyards.